The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the Yakuza-looking lab assistant with the monster projector, that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
And this week, we're also joined by a very special guest.
A friend of the show.
Yes.
Longtime friend of the show.
Longtime
friend.
My name is Hayden Orr. My pronouns are also he, him. A big fan of the show as well as friend of the show. I think actually the first time I was made aware of you guys was the Kingcast spot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I was listening to them for a while, and then they had that one ad, and they were like, "Do you like Frankenstein? Do you wish there was a podcast that was all about Frankenstein?" And I was like, "Are you talking directly to me?" And so I immediately, as soon as I heard that, I was like, "Oh well, I've got to subscribe to this." And then from there on, I been a constant listener.
Awesome.
Well, good, but you also have your own podcast, don't you?
Yes, Last Book on the Shelf, which you guys actually were guests on the most recent book episode that we did, where we covered the original Mary Shelley classic.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Yes, which that was a really fun episode.
That was really fun.
It was really good to be on. So anybody listening who hasn't gotten a chance to check that out, definitely go do so.
Yes.
So this week we're all gathered together to talk about the Japanese anime adaptation Kyoufu Densetsu Kaiki Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
Which, when you get the subtitles from the title, you learn translates to A Legend of Horror: The Bizarre Frankenstein.
Yes. I love those Japanese translations where it's just like something in English. It's like a really long, convoluted, like complicated title.
Yeah.
So nice. They reiterated twice in the opening shots of the movie.
Yes.
My understanding is that this is an adaptation of the of like a Marvel comic. I haven't actually read the Marvel thing, but I ordered it. I'm definitely curious to check it out after watching this movie.
Well, see, I was going to bring that up. I actually, when I was younger, my parents would always, because I was a comic book nerd. I mean, I still am, I guess. But my parents would take me to flea markets and anywhere that, like comic book shops, and I would just spend like hours digging through the long boxes. And I found out, that Marvel had a Frankenstein comic series, and I was like, what? Because,
Right.
I thought Marvel was all like just Spider-Man, Hulk, X-Men, all that stuff. But yeah, in the 70s, Marvel had a whole line of horror comics like Tomb of Dracula, Monster of Frankenstein, Werewolf by Night. Yeah. Now, when I was looking up stuff about this movie that we watched, it said it was released alongside another anime movie called Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned. And I didn't look into the plot of that one, but the look of Dracula definitely looks like the Tomb of Dracula look from the comics.
Oh, nice.
But the monster in this, because I have a big omnibus that's got all 18 or 19 issues of that Marvel Frankenstein series, doesn't really match up. He looks a lot more like Herman Munster in this than just how big and broad. Because in the comic, the monster's got white, like literally like chalk white skin, reddish hair, and he's got like the sort of the Son of Frankenstein fur vest coat thing going on.
Right.
Okay.
The classic look.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like a Solomon Grundy kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. He definitely seems a lot more like Grundy than Marvel's Frankenstein.
Fair enough.
Interesting.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
coincidentally, you said Werewolf by Night, and we know that one of the quote-unquote enemies of Werewolf by Night, or at least in the beginning, Moon Knight,
Oh,
just
yes.
had his show. And in October, Werewolf by Night's getting a mini-series, or at least a movie, a small movie on Disney+. So maybe we'll see Monster Frankenstein there?
Well, yeah, and, Blade's coming out, and it's heavily rumored that Dracula is going to be the villain in that. So, I mean, it feels like they might be setting up some Marvel MCU horror stuff. I'm really... If they do Monster of Frankenstein, I'm absolutely going to freak out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We will definitely be right there with you.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into the show. Let's talk about what happened. So as we mentioned earlier, we're introduced to Mount Snowdon, England. We get the lightning crashes, a legend of horror, the bizarre Frankenstein.
Yeah, and of course, Stormy Cemetery, very traditional Frankenstein opening scene here. And we see there's a castle on a hill nearby. We get the camera as the credits are going, you kind of see a tour of the lab, and it's a little bit more graphic. You can get away with a little bit more with the animation. So there's butchered animal parts all over the tables and everything.
They have spikes in their windows. Who not even the horizontal bars that keep people out, just sideways Mario level spikes.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and we learn later that this is a castle in England that Victor and what's his name? I had what? By the way, I did not get that naming. I was just that's what they're going with. Okay, but yeah, that's just a castle that somebody owns in England that they loan out to people.
It's a what is it?
It's like Airbnb.
Airbnb, yeah, that's right.
for
mad
if there was
an Airbnb. Yeah. If there was an Airbnb like that, I would be there 100%. Next day.
Not gonna lie, yeah, 100%.
So we see the monster on the slab and everything all wrapped up, and Victor says all that's left is to give him a soul, which is interesting because that seems like it's usually, we don't know if he has a soul or not. That's up for debate, but in this case, he seems to think he definitely is going to, and that's part of this process.
Yeah, just infuse the lightning, boom, automatic soul. We're done.
Yeah.
That's where souls come from, right?
Yeah, lightning. Yeah. Sure.
So he has Skell, the assistant, turn on all, he has him flip a bunch of switches, and then he increases the power, make it higher. I think he cranks 3 switches eventually. We start to see the creature twitch a little bit, but he's not quite waking up fully. And Frankenstein actually calls him his son.
Yep,
so,
right off the bat. So he is the a son of Frankenstein once again.
Yeah,
of course.
But then all of the equipment overloads and stuff starts breaking and you got sparks going everywhere.
I think that's how you know the soul's in the body, right? When everything starts exploding.
Oh yeah, yeah. The machines weren't made to handle souls.
Exactly.
Just electricity.
Yeah.
It's like that when when people meet somebody and they're like, when they made you, they broke the mold. That's what they're talking about.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
In this case.
Yeah.
So Victor and Skell are disappointed. They think oh, everything's broken, it's not gonna work. But then lightning just strikes the creature and fills him with power, and he just rises up from the slab and immediately just bursts into flames from the lightning strike.
Yeah, which is he's covered in bandages. If you got struck by lightning, it's gonna light your clothing or whatever you may be wearing on fire. It makes sense.
Now the black anime flames are a little wild, but okay.
Oh yeah. That was just added for flair.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the creature, he's always got to have an excuse to be afraid of fire, so we get that right out the gate. But it actually, it just kind of burns off his bandages, and then he's fine for the most part.
No real damage.
Nope.
Unless, we never see him before that, though, so he could have just been normal and handsome.
He could have gotten Palpatine. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was actually thinking that same thing. He was just a perfectly normal guy till he actually caught on fire, and then boom, now he's actually a monster.
Exactly.
And then we kind of, we see the creature next to Victor, and when we were talking with you on your show about how it's difficult to scale the creature up the way that he should be with actors, and here we've got animation, and you're able to kind of really show that more. The creature is way taller than Victor in scale. Yeah. It's not just a slightly tall guy in platform shoes.
Yeah,
yeah.
This can only be done in animation and CGI, right?
Oh yeah.
as soon as he gets up and is like looming over them, Victor and Scale are like, "Oh shit!"
Right.
We made a monster. So like they like both take off running outside, and the creature is just kind of following. He doesn't know what's going on. Like smashes through a doorway that is not tall enough for him.
He was just born. He wants a damn hug. Okay. That's why his arms are extended out in front of him. That's it.
By the way, he is just he's smashing through those bricks like they're made of Play-Doh. Like absolutely no effort whatsoever.
Well, he broke those chains like they were just twine or something. So,
well, you know the old My Monster or whatever that stuffed animal was that had the orange breakaway chains. It's
My
like
Pet
that.
Monster.
My Pet Monster, yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, he follows them outside, and it's like Skell and Victor are kind of like cowering, and Skell's like, "This is all your fault.
You got to do something about this, Skell."
Yeah, so Victor pulls out a pistol and then hands it over to Skell, like, "You take care of this."
What do I pay you for?
I literally burst out laughing. Victor just gives him a gun and then gets the hell out of there. He's like, "Nope."
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Literally, yeah. He just runs right like in the opposite direction. He's like, "I trust you. You got this."
Right.
But he doesn't got this because he fires. He fires a couple times, and I don't know if he just fully misses or they just don't have any effect. But either way, the creature just like picks him up by the head,
right by the eyeball.
Starts squeezing.
Yep. Rip Skell's eye.
When I first watched this, I was like, did he just pop his head like a grape? And then he started moving again. I was like, what? And I was like, oh, it's just his eye. Okay, that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and so even after that, Skell keeps trying to fire. I guess he manages to hit the creature, and I don't think the bullet really hurts him, but it does kind of knock him off balance enough that he manages to like fall backwards off of a cliff. Mm-hmm. So the creature falls off a cliff and dies. The end of the movie.
Roll credits.
Oh yeah, shortest Frankenstein movie you guys have covered so far.
Right. But wait, we're still in a carriage at Geneva. What's going on?
Yeah, so it's like Victor, he like passes a crime scene and just like he's not worried about it. He just goes past, but it kind of like then the camera moves and follows what's going on at the crime scene instead. We have police talking and they're like, "Oh, this body, his neck was snapped and his organs were removed."
Mm-hmm. Right. Very weird that the organs were removed.
That never really comes up. Like, there's never any full explanation why that would have been.
Right.
Yeah, I was confused by, like, did the monster just have, like, a one-time flirtation with, like, eating human meat? And
maybe.
Then, yeah, because you're right, it doesn't come back up, like, later. Like, he doesn't eat or, like, steal anybody's organs or eat anybody else, like, in any other part of the movie. So I was just like, okay. Whatever.
Right. Yeah.
I do like how they noticed this was a guy who went around selling groceries, though. They specifically call that out. It's like, okay.
And then he became someone else's groceries.
Yeah.
So at least at least in a degree, they're telling you, hey, he wasn't necessarily devoured for no reason. The creature or something was looking for food.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they also do see that there are some large footprints going away from the crime scene. And not only are they large, but they're like so far apart that like one of the cops is trying to retrace them and he can't leap from one to the other.
Right.
So obviously we know what's going on, but the cops are, they're not sure what's happening. Mm-hmm. But then we go back. We're with Victor in the carriage. He arrives home and kind of like he greets Elizabeth and asks about. Yeah, housekeeper. Like, this woman is literally just named housekeeper. They call her housekeeper the whole movie. That's it. She's just housekeeper.
Listen, you can't go around giving your servants names. You might grow attached.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they call her housekeeper to her face.
I know.
I mean, well, if she would have, been framed for a crime and hung, then Victor would have felt really bad.
Right,
so
exactly.
He's got to keep emotional distance.
Right, he would have felt bad, but he never would have said anything until the last possible second when it was too late.
No, yeah, absolutely not.
But he asks about Emily, so we find out in this version him and Elizabeth have a daughter.
Hey, there you go. At least they actually got to be alone on their wedding night in this one, right?
Yeah. And we find out that she is at her grandfather's. Then we see like just like a brief scene that like there's somebody watching this all happen and they are very large. We see like them from their like the knees down basically. These are large Frankenstein feet basically.
Right. Stepping into frame dramatically.
Yeah. And then we cut to Emily with her grandfather, and the grandfather in this is, basically DeLacy. He's the blind hermit for this movie.
Emily is Agatha, Philip is Felix. close enough, I guess. And yeah, the old man's to Lacey.
The grandfather's like, well, your dad's supposed to be getting home. You should head home and see him. He still is kind of like a hermit who like lives on the outskirts of town, but he's not too far. Emily travels back and forth pretty easily, so it's not like a long distance away or anything. She is escorted home by Philip, who I guess is like kind of like a neighbor kid who kind of helps out. It's never fully fleshed out exactly his relationship, but he's friends with Emily anyway. Like they're around the same age. They're also joined by the dog Lucky.
Worst name ever.
Yeah.
If you hear a dog called Lucky, bad things are going to happen to that poor dog.
Yeah.
That was my immediate instinct upon seeing him. I was like, I got a bad feeling about this. Or, like 80s and 90s anime and like dogs.
Right.
It's never good.
Mm-hmm. You're correct.
Yeah, and horror too is the same way. So
add the horror on top of that.
Yeah, the dog. It was a foregone conclusion. The dog was there just to die.
Right.
And so on the way back to like the Frankenstein estate, Lucky is definitely sensing something. Like he's smelling the creature or something. He keeps kind of growling and barking at something, and the kids are just like, "Come on, Lucky," and they're just completely ignoring it. So when they get home, Emily invites Philip in, but he's like, "No, I got to get home. I got to get back to my family." So Emily goes inside, and the whole family sits down to dinner.
Says a little grace.
Yeah, and then we get the first of what are going to be like many, many flashbacks. So like Victor cuts into his steak and suddenly like has a vision of like blood rushing up out of the steak. And then he just kind of sees a bunch of like quick cut scenes of like, him building the creature and
cutting
all
into
the
the legs
gore
and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that sort of becomes like a sort of central theme of this is like memory and the guilt that is attached with your memories. I think as this goes, we're going to have a lot of flashbacks and they're always about like feeling bad about something you did in the past for the most part.
Yeah. And at the end, feeling good, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
To a degree.
Yeah. So this flashback's so intense that like he kind of comes out of it and his family is like comforting him. Like,
are you okay?
He's had some kind of fit almost, or like visibly reacted to what he was remembering. But before like they can really dig into that, there's a scream from the next room. Turns out housekeeper is upset because she has like a bird cage that was crushed and there's like a dead bird inside.
Well, at least the bird wasn't completely crushed because it's just laying there amongst the debris of the actual cage.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised it wasn't gorier with what we end up seeing. What we've already seen and what we end up seeing later. For what is more or less a kids movie, it's pretty graphic, like way more graphic than I would have expected.
Listen, this is 1980s anime. That's a whole different world.
You're right. You're dead on with that.
Yep. Like 1980s anime was like 1980s kids horror movies. Some kids are gonna die. Yeah. There's gonna be blood in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I think I don't know if it's seeing the bird or just like aftershocks of the last flashback, but Victor immediately has like
another.
More flashbacks where he's remembering Elizabeth's father like basically condemning his work and like you shouldn't be toying with this kind of stuff. So he kind of like doubles as DeLacy and also like Professor Crimp in a way. Like,
well, he even tells him, "Hey, you're making a homunculus. You need to stop." So this is a low-key prequel to Full Metal Alchemist, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean anime. Right?
I mean there's a lot of Frankensteinian themes in that anime. I mean with the creation of artificial life and everything. I can see it.
Yeah, so then we cut to like a little bit later and Victor's like in the bedroom and Elizabeth comes in and she knows he's still kind of out of sorts, and she's kind of comforting him. She says that Emily went back to see her grandfather again. They end up hearing, Lucky's making some strange noises outside that, he's still concerned about something. And Victor's just like, I don't care about that damn mutt.
Right.
Yeah, that line, who cares about a stupid dog? Like, whoa, like, chill out, man. Yeah.
But he suddenly, he finds that he's a little more upset about what goes on with Lucky than he thought because he goes to go to bed and pulls back the blanket and there's the dog all mangled and bloody.
Yep. Yeah. You gotta love it. That 1980s trauma, baby. That was awful. I dislike that.
Yeah, it's very like, I don't know, the whole thing with like hiding things under bed sheets, like that is definitely like a movie trope you see a lot. I mean, like I guess the horse head in Godfather is like the biggest example, but it's something you see pretty frequently. I guess it's just a really good jump scare to see that like there's a lump under the covers. What could that be? And then gore and everything.
Especially if there's a little bit of a blood stain on it. It's like, oh no, I don't want to see what's underneath, but I have to.
Yeah. So, even though Victor claims to not care about the dog, he ends up getting the police out there.
Inspector Belbo.
Yeah, and the cop does not really seem to care much. Like Emily is crying. The cop is like hitting on the housekeeper.
Right. Oh, you must have been beautiful back when you were younger.
He's complimenting the pastries.
Right.
He's having kind of a good time.
Yeah.
Just having a visit.
By the way, this guy is absolutely Columbo. You can't tell me anything.
I was going to say, right when he's leaving, one more thing. Yeah.
Every time.
I was like, if this was Columbo, he would have figured everything out like within that first meeting.
Yeah, it probably would have ended better than it did, but
Yeah.
That's why this is a tragedy.
I wrote Columbo in my notes too. That's hilarious.
Right?
But yeah, he like at first he's like, this, it was probably just a prank. There was a murder down the road that was very similar, so somebody was probably just copycatting the murder as a joke.
Yes, there's no reason to be worried about the serial killer that's clearly running around. This was a prank.
Hell of a prank.
Two identical deaths like in the same day, right close to each other. And he's like, that one's probably unrelated and just kind of like a funny little.
That's just a weird coincidence, guys.
I mean, honestly, though, not that far off from how some real life police work would end up.
Yep.
True. But he does mention right before he leaves, he mentions that there were some really large footprints near the person that was murdered, and Victor drops his teacup and like spills everywhere, which if it had been made now, it'd be like, oh, that's totally like the tea has been spilled joke. But that's obvious. This obviously predates that term by many, many years.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, like he goes to leave and then kind of Columbo turns around and is like, oh, what are you a doctor of, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, natural science. Just that natural science. General natural science.
Yeah. Interesting.
I do like how he's like, oh, that's too difficult for me. All right, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that almost feels like he's like kind of playing down that he's like, oh, I'm too dumb for that, thinking he's going to like outsmart Victor later. Mm-hmm. And so then we kind of cut to like that night, and Victor is having nightmares. He's not sleeping well at all. Again, we're seeing like the creature and stuff in his nightmares. And then Elizabeth like runs in and tries to like wake him up. And as he wakes, he says, "It can't be alive.
It was all just a dream."
Elizabeth is very like just fine with Victor's whole like meltdown throughout this entire movie. She's just like, oh, I hope he's okay. And Victor, meanwhile, is like just having the worst time of his life.
Yeah. Right. I feel like this version of Elizabeth is like, listen, it was only a matter of time. I mean, when we were dating, he clearly just kept cutting into steaks and freaking out for no reason. This was just bound to happen. So she's just rolling with the punches.
She's just used to it by now.
But yeah, so then we get like the next morning, and like clearly after the information Victor's learned, he is going to go see Skell, and he's like, or actually he goes to the school, right? He's not specifically going to see Skell, but he just happens to run into him there, and is like, oh, I didn't know you were back. And Skell's like just a dick to him. Like he's really rude, and Victor's like, why are you being so rude?
Anthony, what are you gonna do when a guy just shoves a pistol into your hand when a monster's coming towards you? Tells you to deal with it.
Yeah,
it's a little bit justified.
Skell's completely justified in this.
But Victor's like, but you're sure he's dead, right? And like Skell's like, yeah, he's definitely dead. You want me to go get the body? Like, I know he's dead. And Victor's like, no, you don't have to do all that. Like, I just want to make sure. And then Skell's like, oh, by the way, there's like a faculty meeting that they requested your presence at. It's across
Well, he's
campus.
Also like, listen, it would be a shame if this were to get out. I mean, 500,000. What even was it? He just says 500,000. I'm guessing like Deutschmarks or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Some sort of European currency, but even still, 500,000. I mean,
well, that'll shut me up.
Yeah.
So Victor kind of like rushes across campus and gets to this faculty meeting and is like, sorry, I'm late. And like they call it a meeting, but it's really like, I mean, it's like an inquest kind of thing. Like it's a bunch of people at like a long table staring at Victor. Like at first, like, you know, he's like, oh shit, like they know what's up and I'm in trouble. But no, it turns out that he's been named an honorary member of the Society of Natural Scientists.
Hey, congratulations.
So everybody's all excited about that. And then he's like, well, now I really got to keep that secret. Because,
even more to lose now.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
By the way, don't you just love, like, I love that. Whenever it's like someone's obviously thinking they're going to get their just desserts, but it's like, oh no, we're going to damn you with more praise. And we're just going to keep heaping this on you until you do fall.
That is a great trope.
It is.
Mm-hmm. And then we cut away to the creature who is, you know, wandering around on his own, and he scares away a family who's like out. They have like a picnic table out in front of their house. So the family all takes off, and then he starts eating their food. Yeah, so he's definitely starving. So maybe he was so starving that like
he tore into the guy's guts.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, it could be.
Listen, if he was that hungry, you should have eaten the dog, not just left it in Victor's bed. Unless that was Skell. Right. Could have been Skell. Who knows?
Yeah, I was thinking that the dog and the bird were Skell.
That would make more sense.
But the guy, I think, was definitely the creature.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting though that I think Inspector Bilbo even says like this thing needs to eat a lot, which is very different from the book version, who can subsist on just berries and roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, this feels more like what it would really be if you made a giant 8-foot tall man.
He needs protein.
He would need a lot of fuel. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, like after he eats, we cut away back to the Frankenstein house, and Victor is telling Elizabeth that he received this great honor, and they're all excited. And then again, housekeeper screams from off screen. So like they rush out to find out what's happened now, and this time it's just their flower garden has been all destroyed.
Yeah, but there's one big patch of it that's compressed. Yeah. And it looks really foot-like.
Yeah, just large. Yeah, again,
suspicious.
Big large footprints.
Yep.
So yeah, then we cut away to Victor. He's at a pub paying off, as we were saying, like giving Skell this money, hush money or whatever. Then at that point, Skell is like, honestly, I don't know if the creature is dead or not. Like, I didn't actually see the body.
Right. He went over the side, so, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And he's like, from what you're telling me about all these giant footprints, I don't know. It sounds like maybe he's out for revenge.
Right.
But maybe you want to pay me a little bit more and I can handle this for you so you don't have to deal with anything and nobody else has to know anything about this creature on the loose.
Yeah, final extermination fee.
10,000 a month until you die should be enough. Like, good Lord, man, you just got 500 G's and you're also going to hit him up for 10,000 a month? Like, Skell is not messing around. He was trying to make that bag.
He knows what he's worth, okay?
I mean, you got to give him that.
Yep.
Yeah, he has that like Igor kind of like scheming mentality where he's just like trying to get whatever he can for himself.
Mm-hmm. But then we get the doctor in the bath.
Like he's in the bath, and then you see like blood dripping down from the ceiling into the water.
Hey, do you guys remember when we talked about that scene in Godfather with the horse's head?
Yeah.
Okay.
When at first it was like, oh, he's having another like, hallucination, and it's not real because it's like a couple of drips hit the water, and then like instantly the whole water is red.
Right.
It feels like like a scene from a horror movie that's going to be like a flash, and then it's not real.
Yeah.
But no, it is real.
This is 80s anime. Everything has billions of gallons of blood inside of it.
Yeah, but I was confused though because like it wasn't there when he got in the tub,
right?
But he didn't. I guess maybe he fell asleep and Skell snuck in and put it up there. I was very unsure about the logistics of how that worked out, but I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, we haven't fully said, but so there's a horse head attached to the ceiling directly above the tub.
On a hook.
Yeah. And so it's like dripping blood down into the tub. And Victor freaks out, which causes Elizabeth to rush in. She sees the horse head. She freaks out and faints. So yeah, like definitely a lot of scary stuff happening in their house. Things are, everybody's on edge.
I do like for a brief moment, Victor's like, oh, I'm just seeing shit. And then Elizabeth's like, no, you're not. That's real. That's a thing.
Yep. I am seeing that as well. We see a little bit later, Victor's like pouring himself a drink and his like hands are shaking and stuff. And he's like, this has got to be like delirium. This can't be real. This has all got to be in my mind. You know, this can't be happening, basically. And then he hears sounds and then like looks over and he sees a shadow on the wall, and it is like very obviously the creature. You got like a big tall shadow with a square head, you know, exactly what you would expect to see. And he just like freaks out, pulls out a pistol, just starts shooting, like he's shooting at a shadow, like not trying to find the thing that's making the shadow. And, you know, just, like haphazardly firing a gun around his house, which is like absolutely not a safe thing to do.
Right. But wait, there's something at the door. That's got to be the monster.
Yeah.
And it's Elizabeth. She bursts in and somehow miraculously does not get shot.
I was nervous, man. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. With how brutal the movie has been so far, I was fully expecting him to just blast her right in the chest and just be like, that's how she ends up dying in this movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, she's fine. He doesn't shoot her.
Yeah, she's fine, but he's like, Elizabeth, there's a monster in the house. And she's like, no, there's no such thing as monsters. There's not a monster in the house.
Ignore the whole horse head thing and our dog being murdered the other day.
Yeah.
And
all of this horrible stuff that's been happening over the course of like a few days.
And so then we cut away, and it turns out that we're at Skell's house, and he's laughing hysterically because he did all this. He's got like a fake foot on like a stick that he like, you know, was imprinting in the ground. He's got a projector that projects the shadow of the monster. So he's getting really high tech with these pranks.
Yeah, so for at least this time, it's like, oh, the monster may actually be dead. We don't know. Yeah, we know. He's still around, but still. Yeah. I mean, it's at least a nice little red herring.
And the inspector was not wrong in this case. The dog probably was a prank made to match the murder. So
prank scene, you know.
Yeah.
But Victor, I guess he was kind of, you know, suspicious as well. So he shows up and kind of sees all of this happen.
Right.
So he knows that he has been tricked. You know, he's like really angry, obviously. And Skell's like, it doesn't matter if I tricked you or not. Like, I still know your secret.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can still get your honorary, you know, membership taken away. So you still are going to have to pay me.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, let's do a little bit of compensation for my missing eyeball. How about you give me $1 million now? Just flat out.
Yeah.
We're just gonna shoot for this guy on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the lump sum. I don't want the, you know, the lifetime lottery.
Right.
Just come to the harbor. We'll be done with this, and you know, you don't have to see me again.
And Victor's like, I don't have that. I'd have to mortgage my house. And he's like, oh, sorry about your luck. I guess you're gonna have to mortgage your house then.
Right. I mean, you could mortgage your house, or you could lose the honorary membership. Make your choice, right?
Yeah. What do you want? So Victor is kind of like thinking on that, and then we cut away to the cops again. They're kind of discussing the murder. They've heard rumors that villagers think that it was a monster. Some people even think they've seen a monster around town.
Something's been attacking chickens, and it's not Link.
Yes. So yeah, like a farmer said that it killed his chickens, and that before the creature left, it said Franken. And the inspector's like, I wonder what that could mean.
You know, that sounds suspiciously like this dude, Frankenstein. Must be a coincidence.
Yeah. After hearing Franken, then we cut right away to the Frankenstein home, and we get one of the creepiest scenes in the movie, actually, which does not feature a monster at all.
Well, there's kind of a monster there.
Right. We got Skell, who has come into the garden and is just talking to Emily.
Yeah.
And it's like super creepy. And he's like, your dad has some secrets that he's keeping from you. And if you meet me later tonight, out by the docks, maybe I'll tell you them. And he's like, but you should get permission from your dad first.
Yeah, have him come along as well. Make sure he has some money with him.
Yeah. So Emily, of course, goes and confronts her dad. Like, what's, this weird guy said you got a bunch of secrets. What's going on? And Victor's like, hell no. This guy's not going to be talking to my daughter. That's crossing the line.
I mean, yes.
So
absolutely. Like, he did some Cape Fear shit, so yeah, he's got to go.
Yeah.
But so Victor obviously is not going to tell Emily what's going on, and obviously is not going to take her with him to the dock. So he like locks her away in her room and is like, I'm going to handle this. And she's all mad. You know, of course, she's a
kid. She doesn't understand.
I would say she's like maybe 10 or 12-ish. Like, so she's like old enough to be like, she's not just following like the letter of the law with her parents. She's got like, you know, her own feelings about things, but you know, she hasn't gotten into full like rebellious teen mode yet either.
Boy, could you imagine her when she does? All that trauma. All right.
Yeah, for real. So yeah, Victor gets a gun and like goes to meet Skell, and of course Skell, he knows what's up. He's got a gun of his own. He's ready for Victor.
But it's not necessarily Victor that shows up.
Well, technically, it is a member of the Frankenstein family, though.
That it is.
Yes. He asked for one of the kids to come along. He just didn't get the one he was hoping for.
He got the eldest son, not the eldest daughter.
Right.
Yep, so the creature shows up and like attacks Skell, of course. But then like Victor does arrive in time to see, you know, the creature killing Skell. Mm-hmm. And as he like approaches, again he says Franken. Victor like fires a couple times at him, and again it doesn't really seem to have any effect, but he does, you know, the creature does run away. Like, if nothing else, it's unpleasant to be shot, even if it's not like physically damaging.
Right. And I may be projecting here, but it actually seems like he feels a little betrayed because this is his dad. He called him son, you know? And he's shooting at me. What's up with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is definitely like a major vibe of like throughout the whole movie. I mean, we'll get to it later, but like there's definitely a lot of scenes where the monster you could tell is like, What? I thought everything was fine now. Like, what's going on?
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. So then, like, we see the next morning, the cops are, like, inspecting Skell's corpse. You know, the inspector is like, I don't want to hear any more about all this talk about monsters. You know, there's got to be a logical explanation for what's going on. But I think the other cop says something about, like, I think this guy might be Victor Frankenstein's assistant. I'm pretty sure I recognize him.
Yes, but they also find a gun laying around.
Yes.
Yeah, so the inspector's like, you know, I'm not interested in this monster business, but Frankenstein, you say? Like, yeah, that I am more curious about.
By the way, I do like the gag about the one stupid assistant being really proud that he went to the University of Geneva, and the inspector being like, man, that just makes me feel so much better.
Or that same assistant earlier with the situation with the dog.
Yes.
We didn't mention, but he comes in, he's like, oh, it was horrible.
Right.
That dog is like torn to pieces, and Emily just starts crying even loud. Yeah. And the inspector's like, get out of here, you moron.
Right.
Yeah, they kind of have to squeeze a little bit of comedy in here because this one gets pretty grim in places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, of course, he saw the gun, so he takes the gun and he's heading back to the house. But before he gets there, we see the housekeeper. She is done with all this bullshit. Like, she has had enough.
She's the second person in this movie to go, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she's taking everything with her.
And I think she says, like, this house is cursed.
Right.
Yes. It's unfortunate that she's like one of the few times in like horror where a character is doing something completely practical and it just does not work out for them. Even though they're being smart, one of the smart ones in this situation, it still just does not end well for them.
Yeah. To be fair, her age caught up to her in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she it's pretty much right away. Like, we see her, she's like walking down the road, and then the creature just shows up, like, you know, comes upon her, and like he takes her suitcase from her and just like fucking rips it in half. It's like those like 80s like weightlifters that would rip phone books in half. Like, he just destroys this suitcase.
He's like, you got any snacks in there?
And then it just like cuts away, and you know, it seems like, you know, something bad is going to happen to her. Obviously, we'll get back to that shortly. But meanwhile, the inspector has arrived, and he wants to talk to Victor. And he's like, hey, you know, we found your assistant dead. We also found this gun. You know anything about that? And, you know, of course, Victor's like, no, I've never seen that before at all. That's definitely not mine.
Oh, yeah. And one more thing. I heard you were... You were in Snowden, England, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he like name drops the castle too. He's like, odd. He was like, Victor claims it was a research sabbatical. He's like, odd place for a sabbatical in a creepy haunted castle.
Yeah. But then Elizabeth pops in and
with
is
the
like,
save.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
she just like fully gives him the alibi. She's like, I was with him the whole time. He definitely didn't make any monsters or kill any assistants.
It was
Like,
perfectly
he
lovely.
is-
Nothing creepy happened at all.
Yeah.
This kind of reminded me of the True Story, where Elizabeth kind of takes the reins in the
Yeah.
when they're being investigated in that one too,
Right?
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Elizabeth definitely is, this version of her is a lot more wily. Like, she's going to fight for her family and protect the one she loves.
You love to see a Liz that knows what's going on, you know? Feels good.
Oh,
Yeah. So the inspector starts to leave and then
One more
again
thing.
pulls the Columbo.
And one more thing.
And he's like, I'm hearing rumors that there's this monster on the loose and he seems to be calling himself
Franken.
Franken. You know,
Yeah.
you know anything about that? And Victor's like, no, that's strange. It doesn't, no, it doesn't ring a bell. I haven't heard anything about that.
Yep. All right. I'll be keeping an eye on you, Doc. Or you have a good one.
Yeah. So then we cut away to the grandpa's cottage again, and Emily is milking a goat and talking to Philip. I think she like sprays milk on herself at one point. But Philip's like, I think this is the first time I've seen you smile in a while. It's good to see you happy again. Yeah. It seems like Emily's kind of like, it surprises her. She's like, oh, yeah, now that you say that, yeah, I guess I have been kind of like feeling, it's one of those things where like sometimes when you're depressed, you don't even realize it until somebody points it out to you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we also see then Elizabeth is walking with Victor.
Or she's walking with her father.
Oh, right. With her father, with the blind grandfather, and she's like, "Do you know what's going on with Victor? Something seems askew. There's definitely something that I don't know."
Yeah, and he's like, whenever I lost my eyesight and I quit teaching, right? Me and Victor had a little bit of an argument around that time. And I'm like, oh, did Victor blind him? No, it's just a coincidence. That's fine.
But yeah, he does say like Victor tried to play God, and now he's paying the price.
Right.
There's some references to Elizabeth's dad being possibly the one that kind of got Victor into the idea of like creating life. Because I think in that flashback, Victor's saying like, he says something along the lines of, your discoveries into creating life could change the world, yada, 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 yada. And the dad is like, well, it's not morally right for me to do that, so you shouldn't be doing it either. And Victor's like, not going to listen.
Coincidentally, to add on to what you just said, later on, the grandfather / father will act in a way that feels like it's corroborating exactly what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Because he's very chill about a lot of things that he probably shouldn't be as chill about.
Yeah, it definitely, it feels like he was the mad scientist who like got to the edge and then was like, oh no, okay, I see the like that's not the line. I should not cross that line, and pulled back.
So he was kind of like Waldman from the movie, the Mary Shelley Frankenstein movie with Robert De Niro.
Right,
Right, yeah. He kind of fills in for a lot of characters in this. And then we cut away to the police who have now found housekeeper. She's dead, but she was just scared to death. So the creature did not actually kill her the way that he did this grocer earlier.
Right. However, she must have actually been carrying snacks, because they do note that all of the food that she was carrying with her is gone.
Yeah. So maybe the monster just smelled the food in her suitcase, and that's why he tore it open.
That's so good.
I guess so, yeah.
I love it.
And so they come to the conclusion, any place that has lots of food is going to be at risk if there's some food-hungry monster out there.
Right.
And then it's almost like a comedic cut. It's just immediately like a wedding feast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like, oh shit.
Right.
Everybody's like celebrating. It's a wedding. Everyone's happy. And then like all these I think a window breaks or gets thrown open, and like a bunch of candles just
open.
blow out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the creature just like sneaks into the corner and is just like stuffing his face with. He's like standing over the buffet table in the dark,
just chowing
it's so
down.
funny. They're like, do you recognize him? Did he get invited?
Yeah. Is he your cousin? I don't know. But then those servants got to come in with their lights and ruin everything.
Yes.
Yeah. They see this obviously like hideous creature, and like all the party goers kind of try to attack him, and in the process the candelabras get knocked over, and there's like a fire spreading through the venue or whatever. Yeah. Which then causes the creature to have a flashback to remember, when he was, hit by lightning and burned up in his bandages. So yeah, again, like everybody is just sort of like having memories to the past. The creature runs from the fire, as you would assume, and then like it kind of cuts to the police. They're now searching the woods because they know this monster's on the loose and is looking for food.
Yeah, they're forming a posse, as it were, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. they do end up finding the creature, and like instantly, without any kind of question or any,
Open
like
fire,
stop.
boys.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like all the cops just like open. Yeah, because they're cops and that's what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty terrible, but obviously predictable.
Mm-hmm.
But the creature, still manages to get away. But this time, I guess there's enough gunfire or caliber of bullets in this case or whatever that he is actually hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of like hobbling through the woods. And then, if so far you haven't felt like we've been describing an anime movie
Right.
to you,
The random musical
you
song.
go. There's just like an obvious anime song that at first like it just feels like it's like a montage-y kind of thing, and that it's like an exegetic sort of like song, but it turns out that no, this is happening.
It's
in
quite
the movie.
diegetic.
Yeah. And the creature like ends up following the sounds, and it turns out that it's Emily singing, and in spite of like the big anime
Right.
music production,
The horns, the
this-
violin, the drums.
Yeah.
yeah, it's this
piano.
full pop kind of like orchestra, but in fact it's just grandpa with a guitar and Emily singing.
Yeah.
They're just that
So-
good, Anthony. They're just
Right.
that good.
I mean, really, they should take that act on the road. I mean, that's insane.
I mean, Philip kind of agrees with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the creature, hears and is watching through the window. But so Philip goes to like start a fire in the fireplace, and obviously the creature, he's just had a run in with fire again, and is like, nah, I'm not
Right.
fucking with that. So yeah, he kind of like backs away, like takes off. But when he moves really quickly away from the window, Emily sees him, but they kind of go outside to see him, and he's gone.
Yeah.
Then we see him. He's gotten to a pond. Like this chunk of the movie feels like a greatest hits of like touch points that we have to have in Frankenstein movies.
Yeah.
So he goes to a pond. He sees his reflection, and then realizes like, oh, this is why all these people have been unkind to me. Like I don't look like them.
Right.
He kind of gets sad and a little bit angry, and he starts like throwing rocks into the pond just to kind of like cause his reflection to go away.
That's rough, man. I feel you.
Yeah.
But of course, he does, as the scene kind of winds down, he does have a nice little, like, seems like he's thinking about Emily and how great she was in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like you see like a vision of her like up of it looks like
It's
a
anime,
god like
yeah.
looking down. Yeah. Yeah, she's like above a mountain like looking down. But yeah, he's obviously like looking fondly at her, and obviously her beauty is contrasted with his ugliness or whatever. And then yeah, as that scene winds down, we cut away to the inspector.
Invited Victor to come take a look at something.
Yeah, he's like, I got something you want to see. So Victor kind of enters the room, and we see the shadow of the creature on the wall. And Victor like loses his shit.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
he immediately like picks up a chair and throws it and is like, I'll kill you.
And Balboa's like, that's a really weird thing to do to a projector as he pulls back the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, it's like, of course, like Victor knows this projector exists at this point
Right.
and still freaks out at a shadow.
Yeah. Gets him every
Huge shocker.
time.
Yeah, every time.
And then after that, like after responding to this very obvious shape, like strangely shaped shadow, and yelling, "I'll kill you," he's like, I don't know what you're talking. I don't know anything about a monster."
He is trying so hard,
hard.
to not be obvious.
Right.
Yeah, he's following that, like, you don't say anything to the cops.
Right.
Like, it's,
Oh yeah.
But the inspector's
So
like,
good on him
his-
for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's got one of those lawyers that are on TikTok that are like, when you
Shut
get
your
arrested, shut the fuck up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. But he's like, the inspector's like, well, I've really got no evidence. I mean, I know that you did something. This is involved with you some way, somehow. I just can't exactly prove it. So I guess you can go.
Yeah, but just so you're aware, we did find your housekeeper dead, and you have other family members, so you're free to go home, and we'll see what happens.
Your wife, your daughter.
Seems like people that know you seem to be dying, and you're not doing anything to stop it. So good luck, I guess, if you're not gonna tell us what's going on.
Yep. Well, Victor decides he is going to do something about it. He's going to stab the hell out of himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just goes right to suicide. He's just like, well, there's no other way to deal with this.
The This is logical, but I guess in a situation like this, logic is kind of out the window.
And yeah, even though he's German, this is definitely like, you can tell this is made by Japanese, because like he pulls out like a long knife or short sword and is like gonna go for like the seppuku thing, and Elizabeth shows up and is like, what are you doing, like, and kind of stops him.
Another scene that I was worried for Liz's life.
Oh yeah.
So she stops him, and he's trying to like figure out what to say to her, and she's like, don't worry, I know there's a monster, like I know you built this creature and I know what's going on, like I'm aware of everything that's happening, that's why I've been covering for you. Sure. But like, you need to do something about it now. Yeah, and she even makes the statement that she's going to share his sins. So she's officially an accomplice now.
Elizabeth is so ride or die in this. She really is just in it for the long haul, even though Victor is just a complete piece of shit.
Yeah.
Well, somebody's got to hold the family together, and it sure ain't Victor, so...
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and so then we cut away back to Grandpa's cottage, and he's asking Emily, like, why are you over here so much lately? Like, why aren't you spending time with your family or, with your parents? And she's like, she says she's mad at her father because he's hiding something. Obviously, grandfather knows what's up, but he doesn't really kind of let on. And then Emily goes on a walk with Philip, and they're just kind of out. And, so now Grandpa's alone in the cabin. And so, of course, what happens when the creature finally, like, gets a moment alone with Grandpa, he comes in, Grandpa, like, invites him in, and is like, I don't have much to eat, but I've got some goat's milk if you want something to drink.
Yeah. Grandpa knows who this is. He's like...
Yeah, like, we always use this character as, like, oh, this is a blind guy, so he doesn't know it's a monster. But in this case, they, like, throw that out the window right away. Like, he touches the creature's face... and he's like, oh, okay, I know what's going on, but he's still chill about it. Like he's not upset.
Yep.
He's just like, all right, have a seat. Everything's fine.
Tell you what, I'll get you some milk. I've been through this before. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But then Emily comes in, and obviously she doesn't know what's going on. So obviously this is upsetting. She screams. We see that Victor is like out in the woods, kind of nearby. He hears the scream. So he's like kind of heading that way, but then Grandpa is like, don't worry, like everything's fine.
Well, Emily's got no chill. She's just slinging cups of milk at the monster.
Yeah.
Calling him names.
Yeah, so the creature does leave. He's, obviously like he thought this was his chance. We've seen this before, so he leaves. But then the Grandpa is like, my eyes may not see, but that's why I can look into the heart of others. And it doesn't matter what people look like. That one, he doesn't have a cruel bone in his body. He just doesn't have anywhere to call home.
Right. And people just don't understand him.
Yeah. So like,
the heart swells.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like this is that moment that we want in all the Frankenstein movies, is like a person to accept him. And in this case, it's not just a blind man who doesn't know better. It's a guy who really knows who he is for real and is still accepting him.
Yeah. And once again, probably has dealt with this shit in the past. Just saying.
Yeah. I like to think that this is technically a sequel to another story where Grandpa just created his own monster.
Right.
And it just went through the whole, like, spiel of it himself. He's like, I'm old hat at this point.
Well, I'm just saying, we haven't seen Grandma, so who knows,
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
That's so bad. The implications are awful. We might want to cut that. All right.
But so at that point, Victor has shown up, and like he just kind of like looks in the house, sees they're both okay, and just immediately like takes off because he's like, the creature, it must be the creature. Then Grandpa's like, you got to go stop Emily, go stop your dad. Like, we need to protect this this unfortunate soul. Like he doesn't deserve to be killed just because he exists, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
But Victor does end up coming upon the creature. He sees him, and then we get another flashback where he remembers calling him son when he was first created. It's again like these memories that kind of really shape where we are today. It does sort of like stop Victor like for a second. Like he's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. But then like it doesn't stick. Like he's like, no, I can't. I can't leave him among the living.
Well, to a degree, he is sad because he's like, please just die. I don't want you to suffer. I just want this to end. Just die now, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he does end up firing at him, and the creature kind of like picks up a branch and sort of like swings to just kind of like get everybody away from him.
But it connects. And I'm like, oh, Victor's done. Okay, cool. He's not.
Yeah, that really, like, realistically, that probably should have
killed him.
at least, like, put him in a coma for a while, but more than likely should have killed him.
Yep.
And we know Victor loves going into comas. So yeah. I mean,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
What's your favorite hobby? I like passing out whenever I'm scared.
Yeah, he spends 2/3 of his life laid up in bed with a fever.
Right.
But so while Victor is like knocked out, like we hear a scream off screen, and the creature goes to see what's happening, and it's Emily. She's like got a bear that is about to attack her. I know, we've talked before, like one of the things you like to see is like the creature actually being a capable fighter. Yes. And here we get a really good scene where the creature like fucking fights a bear, and it's awesome.
It really is.
It was giving me major like King Kong versus the T-Rex vibes. I was so glad that this scene was in there.
Yeah, because even for a bit, it does look like he's about to rip the bear's jaws open.
Honestly, that's what I thought he was going to do, but I was like, okay, they're not going to go that gory.
Nah, instead he just chokeslams the bear to death.
Yeah.
So then, he see, Emily has fainted from fear of all this, and he goes and picks her up.
A true Frankenstein.
And he carries her back to the cabin, and like you said, this is that we see this scene a lot with the creature carrying a passed out woman or little girl often, and the grandpa immediately, like I feel like in a lot of movies this would be the point where like the grandpa is like, what did you do to my granddaughter, and like switch his feelings or whatever, but no, he's immediately like, oh, thank you for saving my granddaughter. Right. He doesn't know what exactly happened, but he's on the creature's side here.
I knew you were a good boy.
Grandpa's definitely the MVP in this film,
for real. Then it's like a little bit later, and Emily wakes up. She's she's in bed, and she tells the grandpa that like, oh, the creature is bleeding. Or I think for most of this, I can't remember at what point, but they just start calling him Franken.
Yeah, when she first comes to, she's like, oh, this motherfucker's still here. Oh shit, he's gonna kill us. And he's just on this little stool, and it's kind of like a metaphor for the tension building. And then all of a sudden it just breaks under the monster, and then they all just start kind of chuckling and laughing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's adorable. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a sweet moment, and then, she sees that he's bleeding, so she takes off her scarf and, like, ties it around it's like his upper arm, and she, like, ties it around to kind of, like, bandage the wound. And it's a really sweet, tender moment. Like, he's just saved her, and now she's, like, helping him. To me, it kind of called back to, like, the Hammer movie with, like, the deaf-mute girl that, like, kind of has, like, a sort of symbiotic relationship with the creature in that one.
Yeah, it's kind of like at this point, they finally become brother and sister, right?
Yeah, and then we just see...
Especially because that wound that she's wrapping was the one that Victor caused. So that's like a sister healing a brother's wound from their same parent. Right. So there's
shared trauma.
Shared trauma, familial themes going on there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then it's just like later I think it's the next day or maybe later the same day, but they're all kind of outside, and it's just like Emily and the monster playing, like he's carrying her on his shoulders. This scene kind of goes on for a while where she's like teaching him how to say certain words. She's teaching him how to cook. He's making a huge mess in the kitchen, and it's like just adorable.
Yeah.
She's like, you need to learn how to stir, and he's just like, oh, I'll go into overdrive. And it just goes everywhere.
Yeah, and the grandpa is really he's like, this is what we need to do. We need to teach him humanity because he wasn't taught that. And I'm afraid we may not have a chance. Like, we got to do this while we can. Yeah. I don't know what's coming, but I'm afraid we just got a short window of time here. Emily's teaching him a couple words. She teaches him how to say bird, and then she tries to get him to say her name, but it's like he can't quite get it. It's like Emily. Like, he just can't get... Yeah, he can't get the last syllable, and she kind of like pouts a little bit, like, why can't you say my name? And it's really cute.
It's very tsundere. Once again, going back to anime.
Yeah,
I don't care that you can't say my name.
Yeah, it's really sweet. So at some point in this, like, I think when she's teaching him the word birds, like birds land on him, like it's just
he becomes a Disney princess. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really
yeah.
sweet. And then we have a scene where she's in a swing and he's pushing her. While she's swinging, something falls off and he like stops to go get it, and she was wearing like a cross necklace.
Right.
She calls it a rosary, but it's really just like it's more just like a necklace, really.
Yeah.
It's like gold. It doesn't seem to have like the whole beads and everything.
No, just the crucifix, yeah.
But she's like, "This is God."
Yeah, well, fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, like this. Like, she doesn't really say it's symbolic of God, but I think he kind of understands that like this symbol is a powerful symbol that means something good.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, while she was on that swing, got real nervous because he does push her a little bit too hard. She even comments on that, and I'm like, oh no, she's gonna go flying.
But yeah, this is like such a weird sort of outlier where like things keep going well for a while. Like, you just want this moment to be the rest of the movie. You want everything to be happy, but of course that's not what happens in Frankenstein movies.
No.
So while this is all going on, we see that like Victor is still out. He's out in the woods still, continuing to look for the monster,
shooting wildly in the forest.
Yeah, he seems like he's losing his mind a little bit. Around that time, like Philip shows up to visit and sees the creature through the window. Like the family's in the house, and he just sees this hulking creature in the window, and he doesn't see anybody else, and he's like, "Oh no!"
Right.
He's gotten Emily.
Well, yeah, he even has that little bit of vision where it's like the monster's tearing everything up and killing everybody, and he's like, "Oh no!"
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, like, we just see the village, and we've got like the inspector. He's kind of putting together the good old pitchfork and torch mob. But like, it's so like he's putting together all these like angry villagers,
and he's trying to control them. He's pissing them off and trying to control them at the same time.
Yeah, that's not how that
instantly
works.
Out of control.
I want you guys to get mad, but stay orderly about it.
Okay. Right. Single file when we storm the castle now. Single file.
Yeah. So they head out into the woods, and they find the creature. He is like out gathering firewood for the for Emily and Grandpa, and they immediately just like kind of surround him and throw torches at him and just start a huge forest fire.
Oh yeah, I mean these trees go up like immediately. They were so dry.
Right.
Like
must have been during summer.
I guess so. But I mean, it's like as soon as the torch hits the wood, it's like immediate. Yeah. And they just like start up, like you said. I mean, it's huge. It's like a California wildfire.
Right.
For real.
Well, it's also the volume of torches that they just lob at the guy.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like there's no foresight into like maybe this will cause problems for the rest of us as well. Like,
Right.
Yeah. I think, and Bilbo even says he's like, "Oh great, now we've got this to deal with," and it's like this is
your fault.
Technically, your fault. Like you realize that, don't you?
Yeah. So like the creature is kind of running from the fire now, and we see that Emily she's out by a stream, like doing laundry. She hears some commotion off in the distance, runs back to the cabin, and it's empty. And so she's like, oh no, what's going on? But then Elizabeth arrives there. Obviously there's a lot going on at this point. Everybody's kind of trying to gather together.
This is very hectic, but it's also kind of fun.
Oh yeah.
So they're like, we got to find Victor. So they kind of run into the forest.
We got to find Grandpa.
Yeah. And so, then we see like Grandpa and the creature. They're kind of like trapped in the fire. And the creature ends up like, there's like a burning tree falling. And the creature like basically like
he takes
protects.
The hit.
Yeah, he protects the Grandpa with his own body. So then like Elizabeth sees this happening. But then another tree falls and does kill her. At that point, like some of the fire's starting to kind of go out. Victor finds Elizabeth's body and instantly flashes back to that moment you mentioned earlier where she's like, I will help carry your sins. And he's like, okay, well this is the wages of my sin, basically. Like I've caused the death of my of my wife here.
Right. And then we also have Philip going up to Emily being like, hey, the monster tricked you. It's clearly not a good guy. It's doing bad stuff.
But, the inspector's like, I wonder why he's focused on your family specifically. Maybe there's something you're not telling us?
Right.
Yeah. The inspector pretty much knows the entire story at this point. It feels like he's just kind of like, he wants Victor to admit it. Right. Even though he, like, pretty much knows the whole story. He's just like, come on. I know. Come on.
I feel like he could just arrest him if he wanted to, but he's just letting him run wild for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But we do get a funny bit where the inspector gets his bald head burned by embers. So.
They really, like you said, Anthony. The inspector and his cohorts are definitely the comic relief in this film.
Yeah. But so like Emily keeps trying to, convince them that like the creature would never hurt anybody. And then like Philip is like, now listen, like he kind of like mansplains the creature to her, even though he's never like had any interaction with her. Yeah. He's like, he caused this whole big fire, and Emily's like, the villagers did that. They're the ones that threw all the torches.
Nope, we're just trying to stop them. We're the good guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at that point, the mob comes upon the creature, who is holding Grandpa, who is like alive but not in good shape. So like he kind of sets Grandpa down, and they start chasing the creature.
They discover the mom is dead, and they're all kind of crowded around her body.
Yeah, somebody like comes near like the Grandpa, and he's like laying there kind of like, in a daze, and he says Franken, and they're like, see, it was him, he hurt Grandpa.
Yeah.
So like now Philip is like determined that he's going to get revenge for the whole family.
Yeah, he's going to get that gun and take out that monster, right?
Yeah, and like he's, like the same age as Elizabeth, so like 10 to 12 or whatever, this kid with a gun, and he fires several times, and like the creature is like just kind of deflecting or whatever, but he doesn't want him to keep shooting, so he tries to take the gun away.
Right. And Philip struggles against him, and well, there you notice this nice stone wall behind Philip all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like Philip gets kind of like thrown back, he hits a wall and just seems to die. Like it's a bad hit that he takes, and
I was thinking like immediate broken back and neck, just like oof.
It's rough. He did it to himself, but yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
At this point, of course, then Emily finds him, and all these people are telling her that the monster is bad, and then he sees him standing over dead Philip, and so she's crying. She's like, she gets the gun, and the creature's like holding his hands up, like trying to enunciate that it was that he didn't mean it. But like he still doesn't have the words yet. He's he's pretty limited vocabulary wise. She starts kind of like yelling at him and calls him a monster that kills without thought. And then she kind of gets like one of the first like good shots in. I guess Victor hit him in the arm earlier, but she shoots him and it hits his hand.
She's the only one who's done damage to him with small caliber fire.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's bleeding from the hand, but it's a hand wound. It's fine. But like she even like after that, she kind of is still like holding the gun, but realizes like she can't bring herself to fire again. Like I don't think she could have killed him anyway, but she doesn't have the heart to try even. So she just kind of like lays down next to Philip's body and just cries.
Yeah, it's rough. Of course, the monster's like, well, can't do anything here, so me being here is kind of a bad situation, so I'm just going to head out. And he does look at the scarf, and he remembers the good times that they had. So that's a nice little sweet, like, that is the nicest memory in this whole thing.
Yeah, it's like, I think at first he like hears her voice saying that he's a monster, but then he remembers the scarf, and I think he's like, that's the way I want to remember my relationship with her. And then to kind of like emphasize that, he's like walking along, and he sees a cross in the distance on atop a church, and remembers the rosary, and is like, this might be like a safe place for me to go.
Yeah, if I go here, I'll pray, it'll be okay, right? That's how this works.
Yeah, and so, like, I don't know how much I've gotten in, like, I think this has come up a little bit, but, like, religious imagery stuff, because of, like, my upbringing, that stuff fucks me up, like, so much, like, that is the way to get me, like, emotional, like, nothing else, and, like, I had to stop taking notes for a while during this part, and then, like, rewind it and watch it again, because, like, I was just, like, weeping.
Right.
Like the creature, he goes into this church, and it's a beautiful church, like huge stained glass windows, it's very picturesque, and there's like a huge crucifix, like with like the crucified Jesus on the cross, and he like looks at it and sees the nail in Jesus's hand, then looks down at his own hand bleeding, and like the parallel there, like they make sure to kind of hit you over the head with it, but it's
not
very,
only that,
very poignant.
But the actual crucifix and Jesus are green to re-emphasize the Christ allegory.
Just in case you didn't get what they were going for.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and of course, you've got, he doesn't even know the story here, but like, you have this son who was sent to death by his father, and then you've got this son who's
wanted to be killed by his father.
Yeah.
Right, like the parallels there are painful. Yeah, so he's kind of like looking at this and sort of like having a moment, and then he remembers that she taught him how to pray, and you put your hands together to pray, and so then he's putting his bleeding hands together, and like the blood's dripping down his arm, and it's just it's.
Now, going back to what you said about crying, the moment he started crying, I started crying.
Man, you just see the water and it looks so good, and it's just like, tears are just rushing down his face as he tries to pray, like. And, I mean, I'm sure he's praying to, like, give me, help me find somebody who can understand me and, like, forgive me for hurting this kid. And, like, there's just so much that's happened in this movie. And, like, you've been, like, this is, like, one of those, like, rock bottom moments where, like, even if you don't understand God or believe in God, you, like, in those moments, you believe in God. Even, And so, it's really, really intense. Yeah. Then Victor shows up.
Ah, nice. Yeah. Hey, Dad, thanks for ruining the moment.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And like at first, I thought it was just going to be like a final confrontation here in the church, but so like at first he he starts firing at the creature, and he just starts like picking up whole church pews and just throwing them at Victor.
Oh, so good. I was hoping one connected. Not gonna lie, but yeah.
It kind of like knocks him away at least, so that like the creature is able to just like walk out. And again, Victor's like, I will have my revenge, Then we cut to Emily, and she is now with Grandpa,
who just woke up.
Yeah, he's just woken up, and he's like, no, the creature saved me from the fire. He didn't hurt me.
He tried to save your mom, but didn't get there in time.
Yeah, and he's like, where is Franken? And, she's like, he's gone.
Yeah. But I do like that he tells her, don't ever hate him. Whatever you do, find him, don't hate him.
And he finally is like, so the secret that your dad had is that he made him. Humans don't have any right to take or create life, and your father, broke that. But since he lives now, don't hate him. You must be kind to him. So, of course, she runs into the forest to try to find the creature at this point.
Well, somebody else has already found the creature. And I'm not going to lie, I cheered this whole, at least this part, because we come upon Inspector Belbo and all of his little posse surrounding the monster, trying to fire at him. The monster has had enough shit. He's done. So he just picks up rock and just starts lopping them.
Yeah. The cops are just like firing wildly, and he's just like mowing them down with boulders. Like just
rock beats bullet, bitch.
We end up where it's like he pretty much kills all of them until it's just like the inspector left.
Oh, and he's gonna bash him in the head with a big old boulder.
Oh yeah.
And like the inspector is firing, and his gun either jams or runs out of bullets or something. So like it looks like the creature's got him. But then he flashes back again and remembers Emily calling him a monster that kills without thought, and is like, no, I'm gonna be better than this. Like, I'm gonna rise above this moment. So he sets the boulder down.
But who's not gonna rise above it? Who's not gonna rise above it in this moment? That's Victor. He just shoots the monster in the back like a cow.
Yeah. The creature kind of like falls down a little bit, and like Victor is approaching, like he's ready to like put an end to this. He's going to kill the creature. But then Emily shows up and stops him, and she's like, Franken saved Grandpa, and everybody who's died the past few days, it's all your fault. Like you set all this in motion. Yeah, so you can't blame the creature for anything that happened. You're responsible for Mom's death and everybody else's deaths.
Once again, Victor was the true monster all along.
Oh yeah,
we know this.
Yeah, and he has, he kind of has to reckon with that, like, because it's true, like she's right, and hearing that specifically from his daughter is way worse. Like if the inspector had said that, he might have like tried to defend himself, but like your last living family member telling you that like you're responsible for like all the bad in the world, basically, that's crushing. And
being right.
Yeah, exactly. So she like goes to the creature and kind of like stands in front of him like she's gonna like try to protect him, and then we have another just like tearjerker moment. He finally is able to say her name, like he gets out all the syllables. Yeah, like he says it once, and she like gets like she's all happy and like you're learning, and like it's this really sweet moment, and then like he says it again, and the way he says it again is with some sadness. It's not like the victory of being able to say it. It's kind of like resignation, like goodbye, Emily, basically. Yeah. And so he turns around, walks to the cliff edge that he's nearby, and just walks off.
And as he falls, the scarf comes undone, goes flapping about in the wind dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The very Iron
And
Giant type of moment.
Right.
It felt like to me.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. And then we see Victor.
Victor's
who's
wild,
filled with
man.
I was feeling so down, and then Victor's just like, I was like, what? I was like, are you kidding me, man?
I'm
like,
just gonna turn around this double barrel. Yeah, I'm gonna turn around this double barrel shotgun around while my daughter is right here, and just blast myself in the chest.
Like, he went through all of this and it didn't think like, maybe I'm going to try to make this up to my daughter somehow over the next few years. He's like, nope, I'm out. He's like, just could not deal with it.
You know what Emily hasn't had enough of? Trauma. She needs more.
Right. And that's how it ends. And then we get as the credits roll, we get kind of like a final sort of scene. We see a grave, and the inspector kind of comes and pays his respects there. And the scarf, it's just like a wooden cross with that scarf tied to it. So we can assume that this is the creature's grave, not Victor's. Mm-hmm. And, you just see that scarf kind of blowing in the breeze, on the gravestone. Then, we get just some, scenes, literally just, the scenery as the credits roll, and it's just, empty. And I think it's just kind of showing that, all these places are now empty. Everyone's gone. It's just kind of this sort of sad, abandoned. I mean, it's probably just literally the background paintings without the the animated characters on them. But it feels intentional that everything's just silent and abandoned.
Yeah, and I think the wildest thing is it's basically implying that all these people effectively committed suicide to a degree. They all kill themselves by overreacting, as it were.
I mean, yeah.
And then at the very last thing we see is. It goes back to that grave, and the camera pans down a little bit, and you see that some flowers are growing out of it. So there's a little bit of hope there at the end of this pretty grim movie. Mm-hmm. And so we never really find out what happens with Emily. I mean, I guess her grandpa is okay. He's still alive. Yeah. So I guess Emily and Grandpa are gonna be able to have a life together, but it's gonna be a hard life. They've lost everyone they love, and it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, things are definitely gonna be awkward around Christmas time, I'm sure.
But that movie, it's just a really beautiful movie. It's sad, it's really dark, but it's just really the story. It's not entirely faithful to the novel, but it feels like it takes the bones of the novel and puts them back together in a really interesting way. Yeah, I had not seen that before this watch, and I will definitely be revisiting this. I enjoyed it a lot.
Definitely. Yeah, so one of the wild things I think about is, why isn't this more fondly remembered? It's a good movie.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I think it might be maybe because the animation is older, and at certain points it's kind of janky a little bit, but it's really not. It's not that bad.
No.
Yeah, and it's never had an American release, really. I think there may be old VHSs around, but this deserves Shout puts out all those nice Studio Ghibli really nice sets. This deserves that.
Right. They released this and that Dracula Sovereign of the Damned. They could do a double feature release and have both of them on there.
Yeah, I would definitely pick that up if it existed.
Right. All right. So what we're saying is, if there's any Japanese fans, some way, somehow, we need these animes redone. Okay.
Yeah. After I got done watching it, I made a group text of several of my anime nerd friends, and I was like, I am so mad at you all that you have not made this movie more famous, and that you never told me about it. Right. What is wrong with you? Right. But yeah, I mean. Apparently, I think it might have been released directly to television, so that may be it, that it never had a theatrical run. But I mean, there's plenty of TV movies that have long lives on video after the fact.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe somebody will grab this at some point and give it the release it deserves. And if so, I will definitely be first in line to pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, at least Marvel can go back to the well, right? Because obviously they're not doing too bad as far as money's concerned.
Yeah.
So, right.
I know they had their little manga verse, and in the upcoming Spider-Man Across the Multiverse, or whatever the new one is that's coming out, I saw Leopardon. I'm just saying, you're gonna get Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, he was in the Spider-Verse comics too. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, they're drawing from that for the new one. So I mean, yeah, it's possible.
We're encouraging, is what we're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So has anybody else got anything on this?
No. I mean, I think we think we got it covered. Definitely, if you're listening to this and you were, on the fence about watching it, go watch it. It's worth it. And it's on YouTube.
I was gonna say there's no good release of it, but yeah, you can just find it on YouTube. I'll probably put a link to it in the show notes so you can track it down really easily. Highly recommended.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm gonna check out Sovereign of the Damned because I'm a big Vampire Hunter D fan. So
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I definitely. I was gonna watch that one sometime next. Actually, it probably is on YouTube too, but I didn't check to see. But I'm sure it probably is if this one is.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. Well, so Hayden, I know we kind of plugged your stuff at the beginning, but you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah. We are Last Book on the Shelf. We're on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you could, find podcasts. We're on there. We are on Twitter and Facebook as Last Book on the Shelf, and don't have an Instagram. We really need to make one. But all three of us are kind of lazy, and none of us want to make an Instagram account. So we might have one eventually, and if we do, it'll be Last Book on the Shelf. But yeah, that's where you can find me and my friends John and TJ.
There you go. That's something to look forward to. Hey, Anthony, where can they find us?
So, yeah, we're in a lot of the same... We're on Twitter, and we are on Instagram, but we're not on Facebook because I'm too lazy to start a Facebook. Yep. But, yeah, you can find us at the Frankencast, and you can also find us on Patreon at patreon.com/thefrankencast, where you can find us kind of exploring Frankenstein outside of the movies, getting into some other kind of odd ephemera, books, and talking about the Munsters TV show and some stuff like that.
Yeah, we have some really fun episodes on the Patreon.
Yeah,
they're a lot more like loosey-goosey.
Yeah, I can definitely vouch for that. I am a patron, and I'm a patron of like several podcast shows, but your guys is definitely one of my favorites. And like you said, it's a lot more loosey-goosey. You do more varied stuff instead of just movie reviews and stuff like that.
Appreciate that. And also, if you're interested in some books, we have some friends of the show as well. Paul Serino has put out some good trivia books for Frankenstein, and Julian David Stone has also done a great fictionalized telling of the creation of the first Frankenstein film called It's Alive. So if you need some reading, go check that out.
Yeah. And speaking of the Munsters that we're talking about on Patreon.
Hey, Anthony, I'm feeling a little homesick. Aren't you?
Yeah, so, obviously we've been talking that the Munsters new movie is coming soon, so we're going to give you some Munsters content here in the main feed. So next week we will be talking about Munster Go Home.
You know what I'm thinking? Maybe we start off a whole month of Munsters.
Yep.
Dun, dun, dun.
There's a couple original movies, but I think we're only going to do the first original series movie, and then because there's some other odd movies, and we want to kind of squeeze in a couple different interpretations before we get to what is sure to be a very different interpretation coming soon. So
yeah,
our good friend Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's going to be family friendly. For some reason I was fully expecting like a House of a Thousand Corpses vibe to the Munsters remake.
I don't trust it. I'm just telling you, Hayden. I don't trust it.
Well, I mean, it might. I mean, it's releasing right to Netflix, so it's not like they have to worry about putting something out in the theaters that's going to shock people like that. So I mean, maybe we might see Grandpa feasting on some young virgins.
Yeah, that's
and
kind
the
of
question is what it's family friendly, but what family?
Right?
It's the Firefly family, maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, do we have anything else?
I think that's everything.
I think that's it, yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.